In today's episode, I add the finishing touches, the layout is packed up for the exhibition, and Pitley Steam Railway gets its first visitor. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, That Model Railway Guy, for another episode of building a modular model railway. And it's a big one today because it's exhibition time. As always, this episode is proudly sponsored by both D-Rail's Model Shop and Model Railway Scenes. More about both of them later on in the video. But yeah, if you saw the last episode, the layout is now complete. Almost. There's still a few finishing touches to add, and very soon the whole thing is going to be packed up to travel down to the Spa Valley Railway for their annual Model Railway weekend. This is a big deal for me. Last year I took Go for Tin to the exhibition, which is a small little layout in comparison, and it doesn't take much to keep people happy. You can just run a train round on the circuit and it works very well. Pitley Steam Railway, on the other hand, takes up a lot more space. It's more complex, it takes more work to run, but being a larger layout, there's also more expectation that comes with it too. And also, I've been talking about this layout on the channel for a couple of years now, and so people are finally going to get a chance to see it in person, and I don't want to let anyone down. Also, I happen to be a volunteer at the Spa Valley Railway. I know there's a few other members who are also exhibiting their layouts, and if mine is the one that fails to work, I will never be allowed to forget it. So, no pressure then. Here you can see I've got the full layout set up for the very first time with all the new modules that I've been building over the past few months. The first thing I needed to address before the exhibition was lighting, so that everyone can see the layout properly, and I've gone with these twin LED gooseneck lamps. These are really handy since they just clip onto the trestle legs the layout sits on, and you can easily adjust them as needed to spread light evenly across certain areas of the layout. And you can see here how much of a difference it makes having these lights on. In this setup, because of the size of the room that I'm in, I have the lights in front of the scene at the moment, but at the exhibition, remember the station will be facing outwards the opposite way round. On the corner modules though, you can see how the lights come up and over the back scene to illuminate the layout below without being too intrusive, and this is how they'll be positioned at the exhibition. Speaking of the back scenes, you'll have seen these in previous videos already, but these are now finally in place. I've used the ID Backscenes range, which have a sticky back to them, and these have been attached to some 1mm Foamex just to give them a bit of strength. The scenes themselves are generally really nice, and you can see they add a lot of extra depth to the layout. However, these are sold in a pack as a continuous scene, but as you can see here, the joints between one sheet and the next don't always match up, which is really odd. Admittedly, this is the worst of them, but it's really annoying, and I don't know why they didn't just fix this in Photoshop before printing the back scenes. There are also other parts of the back scene where you can see that they've just simply mirrored the image too. It's not noticeable initially, but once you've seen it, it's hard to ignore. By the way, these back scenes are simply fixed to the rear of the module using Velcro strips, so they can easily be removed for storage. That brings me on to the next upgrade, which is some black cloth to go around the front of the layout to improve the presentation at the exhibition. This is such a simple thing, but it really does make the layout look a lot more professional, and it hides all the trestle legs, the wires, bags, and any bits and pieces that we'll need to store underneath the layout. And you can see here, before installing the cloths, the frames of the baseboards were also painted black too, so that everything blends together. And just like the back scenes, the curtains also attach using Velcro, so this way you can have the back scenes or the curtains on both sides of the layout. This series has proudly been sponsored by D-Rail's Model Shop, a fantastic retailer who cater for all scales and gauges. Honestly, they've got stuff for N gauge right up to live steam locos for garden railways and everything in between. Even if you already have a particular retailer that you use on a regular basis, I'd say it's still worth keeping an eye on D-Rails. After all, if you're looking for something very specific, then the more model shops you can search around, the better. They also have their newsletter, which you can sign up for on their website, drails.co.uk, and they'll let you know about all the latest arrivals and announcements too, so you don't have to worry about missing anything. They're really friendly and they do a really good job of looking after their customers too, so please do go go check them out, and thanks again to Derails for sponsoring this series. Taking a look at the layout itself, I've been able to add a few little extra details around Pitley. For example, I've got this modern industrial bin which was going spare. I used a couple of them elsewhere on the layout, and this one has been added by the little hut in the yard, which I imagine is where volunteers sign on each morning. I've also added a signalman figure to the balcony on the signal box, just so that there's someone there to control all the points and signals. Similarly, you may remember the 3D printed figure of me and the dog that I placed on the platform a while back. Well, I've now added a bit of thread between the two to act as a lead for the dog. And of course, I've got plenty of other figures around the layout too, many of which you've seen before. I really do like these as they give the scenes so much extra life. But of course, with all these people at the railway, they must have got here somehow, so I've filled up the car park with some Oxford die-cast cars. Here I was specifically trying to go for modern day cars to once again reiterate that this is a modern day heritage railway rather than a scene from the past. I will admit it was actually a little bit tricky to find models of cars that were fairly mundane rather than, fancy sports cars, but I think I've just about got away with it. Although that said, I have made a little bit of an exception with this Morris Minor parked behind the station. I have a personal reason for including that one, and my excuse here is that it belongs to a volunteer. Perhaps he's one of the station staff working on the platform. Of course, the main focus of the layout is the trains though, and so these have had some upgrades too. As the train comes to a stop in the platform, you may just notice I've added a tail lamp to the back of the train. Being a guard at a heritage railway myself, this was something that stood out to me, and so I painted up these little 3D printed lamps and added them onto the rear of all the trains. The locos themselves now also have crew members fitted on the footplate. In an ideal world, something like the Cali 812 class would have 3 members of staff working on it, but a driver and a fireman will suffice for now until I get round to buying more figures. It's not just the locos with open cabs that are getting crew fitted either. As the J72 passes by here, you might just catch a glimpse of the crew in this loco too. Now that we have trains running on the layout, one thing I have been concerned about is keeping things moving constantly throughout the day. To help with this, I've finally gotten round to fitting point motors to all the turnouts in the fiddle yard, which will really help speed things up. Now, some of you may be surprised to hear that the fiddle yard didn't have point motors already, but honestly, when it's just been me operating this for fun, I didn't feel like it was necessary. At the exhibition though, it makes sense for all the points to have motors, not just the ones on the scenic section, and this way it allows the next train to quickly depart the fiddle yard after one arrives. This means that the time between trains on the layout is kept to an absolute minimum. It may not be very realistic, but generally I find that if you stand in front of a layout for more than 2 minutes and nothing happens, well, people get bored very quickly. Additionally, all the points are now wired up for DCC control. This means that rather than having to be controlled from a central control panel, each individual operator can switch points anywhere on the layout as needed. As I've shown in the past, the layout runs using the Z21 system controlled by various smartphones, and so it's really easy for operators to now swap points. I also won't have time to tell everyone the DCC address for each individual point, but as you can see, the app has a visual representation of the track plan. Switching a point is as simple as giving it a tap on the screen, and this then sends a signal to the corresponding turnout on the actual layout. It's absolutely brilliant to have this system up and working across the entire layout, as it means the operators can select a train and follow it round the layout, switching the points as they go, rather than having to rely on one central person to make all the decisions. When it comes to operation of the layout in an exhibition setting, my plan is to try and keep things very simple. The fiddle yard can hold 7 trains at a time, and so these can be selected by any operator and run round the main circuit, either stopping at platform 1 or passing straight through. Meanwhile, another operator can shunt the 2 sidings in front of the shed using platform 2 as a head shunt. This means that when the mainline train disappears round the corner or heads into the fiddle yard, there will still be some action going on round the front of the layout.
And since this shunting doesn't affect the main line at all, if someone wants to talk to me or ask me questions, I can simply stop the train I'm shunting and I don't have to worry about blocking the mainline trains. So as you can see, there's lots of little things to plan for which hopefully will help the layout stand out at the exhibition. But before that, I need to actually get the layout there.
So today is Friday, it is setup day for the exhibition. I think this is the day I'm most worried about, or most nervous about actually. The weekend itself, actually running trains and talking to all you lovely people. If you turn up, please turn up. I hope some of you turned up. I'm sure there will be. But yeah, doing that bit, I feel like that's the easy part. Actually running some trains and putting on a good show should be easy, right? Setting everything up, getting it all working, making sure it all runs properly, there's no derailments, just transporting the layout away from home. It's the first time it's ever been away from home, so yeah, just hoping today goes all right. We'll see. Gotta get the van picked up, load everything into the van, take it down to Spa Valley Railway, and yeah, then reassemble it all in an engine shed.
Many of you have been asking how the modules are stored when the layout isn't in use, and here is your answer. Essentially, they're all stacked up on top of each other using these frames to hold them together. This way we can move multiple modules at a time and crucially fit everything in the van for transportation. Speaking of the van, here's everything loaded up and you can see it all just about fits. By exhibition standards, Pitley is more of a medium-sized layout, but even so you can see how much space everything takes up. Don't forget it's not just the layout, but all the supporting legs, the lights, locos and rolling stock, power cables, emergency toolkits. There's a lot to prepare. Thankfully it all fit though, and then it was off to the Spa Valley Railway in Tunbridge Wells. Upon arriving at the railway, the first thing to do was unload all the modules from the van. These were then carried over to the shed and the layout's designated area so that reassembly could begin. The two station modules were placed on legs in a rough position, mainly because I wanted to get these off the floor as soon as possible. The first section to be fully set up though, as you can see, was the fiddle yard. We then gradually worked our way around the layout, joining the various modules together. As well as bolting the sections together, we also had to connect up all of the wiring. In some cases this was literally just 2 wires for the track power, but in other instances there were lighting and data cables which also needed to be properly connected.
Oh, that's it, I'm stuck in now. I can't come out for the rest of the weekend.
Shortly afterwards we got all of the black cloth attached around the outside, which worked just as well as I'd hoped. You'll notice none of the back scenes have been put in place yet, and that's because I wanted to check a loco would run round first without any issues. If there were any problems, it would be much easier to do from the inside without having to reach over the back scene. Thanks to the slightly uneven floor, we did have some derailments, but I was able to sort this out, and as you can see, soon afterwards the loco was able to complete its very first circuit. With that done, the back scenes were put in place and the lights were then set up too.
It's all coming together.
And with that, the layout was ready to go for the opening of the exhibition the following morning.
So, as you may know by now, anyone who becomes a channel member automatically gets early access to the next video in this series. And some of you may be thinking, well, what's the point if we're coming to the end of the series now? Well, that's not quite true. There is in fact still another episode to go, which members can watch right now, by the way. But in addition to that, there's loads more content coming in the near future too. I actually have several exciting projects planned for the next few months, including the start of the next big layout project. So if you want to be the first to find out about them, then you'll definitely want to sign up to become a member. There's also more exclusive content coming along too. Really excited about that. And yeah, obviously you'll only be able to see that if you become a channel member. Like I've said before, it costs less than the price of a cup of coffee to become a member, so click the join button below this video and you'll get a quick rundown of all the other awesome benefits on offer too, and hopefully I'll see some of you in the members area really soon.
Okay, here we go. Day one of the exhibition, just about to leave. Just thought I'd do a little bit of quick video before I do, but yeah, got the layout all set up last night. That all seemed to go fairly well. I'm glad I did take the soldering iron, because I did end up having to do one little bit of soldering just across one of the joints of the baseboard just to realign a rail. That was fine though, it was nice and easy. And actually, one of the layouts that was opposite us as well seemed to be having real trouble with their layout, so they did seem to have a soldering iron and they needed one, so yeah, I let them borrow mine overnight. In fact, I actually left and they were still using that, so I need to get that back from them at some point. But yeah, hopefully today all goes well. We had trains running around last night, so hopefully more of the same today, and yeah, we'll just head over there now, put some rolling stock on the layout and get some locos out, and hopefully get stuff running before the doors even open, so that by the time the public do come in, we'll have trains running.
When I arrived at the railway, the shed was filled with life and loads of layouts and traders had been set up ready for the start of the show. Over by my layout, the real-life Caledonian 812 class 828 had been rostered to run, but unfortunately had failed, so it was stuck in the shed. As Pitley Steam Railway was set up right in front of it though, that did give me the unique opportunity to get both the model and its real-life counterpart in a shot together. Meanwhile, some of the volunteers who were on duty that day stopped by before the show opened to take a look at things as I was getting set up. And amazingly, the next person to visit the layout was none other than Simon Kohler, who was there to officially open the exhibition.
So this is this is brilliant. Thank you. I love to see that. Well, I'm a volunteer along with Andy. We're both volunteers here. So this is sort of loosely based on my own experience of volunteering at the bar and MC. Well, I'm a volunteer up in York.
As you can see, I had a really good chat to him about the hobby in general, but also about how the layout was modular and so it could fit together in lots of different ways. At the time, he seemed to be really interested in the layout, although perhaps he was just being polite, but either way, it was nice of him to stop by. Eventually though, he was whisked away to go and open the show.
I'll hand over to Simon to say a few words. Thank you, Richard. And good morning to everybody. It's the first time that I've been to Spart Valley, and I'm terrifically impressed with what I've seen. And hopefully today you will have the same enjoyment from it as I am. But anyway, have fun. I'm certainly enjoying it. So you take care, but spend and support Spart Valley. Thank you very much. Oh, and sorry, just one small other point. The show is now officially open.
And just like that, the show was open. The exhibition filled up really quickly, and from this point onwards, we had people around the layout constantly, and things only got busier as the day went on.
I do have to say a really big thank you to everyone who came by and said hello and took pictures. It was really great to meet so many of you and to finally show off the layout in public too. Similarly, there were lots of people who knew nothing about the channel either, who also really seemed to enjoy the layout despite not being familiar with it. We also had lots of families enjoying the layout too, and several people who said it had inspired them to start work on their own layouts. So, end of day one, Saturday evening. As you can probably already tell, I am exhausted. Really busy day. I know this is obviously going to come out a few months after the actual exhibition, but if you did stop by today and said hello and said nice things about Pitley, thank you so much for coming. It was great to hear so many people who followed the channel, who had followed the building of the layout and were excited to see it in person, as it were. So I'm really glad that you got to see it, and I hope we put on a good show for you. It was, not without its moments. I think the worst moment probably was right as we were opening, getting everything tested and trying to just run some trains around before everyone turned up to make sure everything was working properly, and of course there was a problem. I don't know why, but for some reason platform 1 just wasn't getting any power. Yeah, like I say, no idea why. I guess just, from the layout having been moved around overnight, it must have settled or something. Change in humidity, the temperature in the shed. Obviously, it's not like a nice warm house. It gets quite cold in there overnight. So I imagine just stuff moved around and some bit of rail contracted or whatever, and power for some reason wasn't getting through to platform 1, which was a bit of an issue because, it would have made it difficult to run trains if that wasn't working. It actually took me a while to kind of diagnose the problem in a way as well, because I was testing the locos that I was sending around to test all had stair lights fitted in them, and they were getting halfway through platform 1 before cutting out. I used one of the Hatton's Genesis coaches which has lights in but no stair light, obviously, and so I was using that on all the different sections of track to see which bits had power, and eventually isolated the problem. But yeah, so then I ended up literally like 5 minutes before the show opened, getting the soldering iron out to solder on a piece of wire over a rail joint just to make sure some power got through. Could have done without that. That was sort of like my worst nightmare. Right as the show was opening, people coming in. But once I did that, the main thing was that it did then work faultlessly for the rest of the day, which was great. The main issue really I had was that so many of you lovely people stopped by to say hello and wanted to talk to me about the layout and about the channel, that I found it really difficult to keep trains running. So I think I'm definitely going to have to rope in Andy, who's on the layout next door. He's a fellow guard at the railway. You might remember him from last year's video that I did on the exhibition if you saw that, but he's agreed to help out this weekend as well. He's got his own N-gauge exhibition layout right next to mine called Harland Castle. Lovely little layout. We're halfway through the exhibition now, so that's Saturday done. We'll see how busy Sunday is. Usually at exhibitions, Sunday is the quieter day, so I think that was true for last year as well. We'll see if that's the case this year as well. Looking forward to doing it all over again tomorrow, after a good night's sleep, of course. So hopefully if I remember, I'll film a little bit in the morning before I set off, and let's go do it again.
So maybe you're watching this and you're thinking it might be a fun idea to take a layout of your own to an exhibition in the future. And that's great, but if you are, you're gonna need to make sure that the modelling is to a really high standard. And that's where our other sponsor today, Model Railway Scenes, comes in. They make a wonderful range of 3D printed detail items that suit all kinds of model railways, and honestly, the extra detail that these add to a layout really take it up a level. I remember when I first added some of their details around the station area on Pitley, it really started to feel like a proper model railway at that point, not just a train set, but a living, breathing world. If you head over to their website, modelrailwayscenes.com, you can check out everything they have on offer, and in addition to that, Model Railway Scenes are also offering you guys a 25% discount on their 3D printed range, which is absolutely awesome. Just use the code TMRG2020 2023, don't worry, that code does still work and you can get 25% off their 3D printed products. Thanks again to Model Railway Scenes for sponsoring this series, and make sure you use that code TMRG 2023. Okay, so day 2, Sunday morning, just before I'm about to head off. Hoping it's going to be a bit of a calmer day today. You can never really tell with exhibitions. Sunday is generally the quieter day, but we'll see. But even so, even if it is still busy, I think it'll be a calmer day, or it'll feel like a calmer day just on the basis of I've got a bit more of an idea of what I'm doing now, how to operate the layout in an exhibition setting to keep things moving all the time. I know what works, what doesn't, so hopefully it should be an easier day all round. The only bit I'm not really looking forward to actually is having to pack it all up at the end of the day and put it back in the van. Yeah, not really looking forward to doing that after having just done an entire day of talking to people and running trains and stuff, but you know, it has to be done. And I think we've got to do it fairly quickly as well, because they've got to move a load of rolling stock, like full-size rolling stock, back into the shed. So, you know, we can't take our time with it. We've got to get it done fairly quickly. So, yeah, a little bit of pressure for that, but for the most part, just going to enjoy the day. Going to enjoy talking to all you lovely people again, and just have a great day running some trains. So, yeah, let's go.
Overall, Sunday was generally a quieter day, which meant it was a lot easier to focus on running trains. And for the first time, I was able to have a proper look around the exhibition to see some of the other amazing layouts on display. One benefit of being able to control the layout using my phone was that I didn't necessarily have to be inside it to control the trains. This meant that when it was more relaxed on Sunday, I was able to be outside of the layout to talk to people more casually. That said, I did have a huge amount of help from fellow volunteer Andy and his son Benjamin. They had their own N-gauge layout set up next to mine, and on the Sunday, Benjamin pretty much took charge of Pitley Steam Railway and was running it better than me.
So, that's it. We're at the end of the show, pretty much. We've got about 15 minutes before we close. Thank you to you two for your help. I've not really taken any video inside the layout all weekend because we've been busy actually making it run.
Yeah,
but
it's been a busy weekend.
It has indeed, but I've not really done a huge amount today. These two have been running circles around me on the layout quite literally. So yeah, in the shadow of 828, as you may have seen. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Us from Spa Valley Railway 2023. Yeah, that's it. Probably for Pitley's only exhibition appearance, depending on how well this has gone down with everybody. So yeah, we'll see. But thank you again to you guys. Couldn't have done it without you. And now we've just got to pack it all up and go home. So, a bit of time has passed since the exhibition, and you can see the layout has made it home all safely and is once again set up back in its usual spot. I was going to do a sort of wrap-up of the exhibition as a whole here and just sort of talk about what the experience was like, but I think I'll leave that till the next episode where I can talk about it in a bit more depth. But overall, this has been an incredible journey. To build and complete a layout of this size then take it to an exhibition and have so many people enjoy the layout in the same way that I do is just amazing. I know I get to read all your lovely comments when these videos go out, but there is also something to be said for face-to-face interaction and also for just being part of a bigger event in general. Anyway, that's it for today's episode, but there is still one more episode to go in this series. A grand finale, if you like. Don't forget, if you're a channel member, you can watch that video right away, but here's a look at what's coming up in the final episode. Pitley Steam Railway has its grand opening. I give you a tour of the whole layout, and talk about what's in store for the future.